Okay, folks, we're all set to get ourselves underway here now in lesson number 5 in our Psalms primer. Almost got that backwards there. Take your Bibles and turn with me, if you would, to the 4th book of the Psalms, Psalms 90 through number 106, the 4th book of the Psalms. I'll take our signboard off here. Once again, the whiteboard behind me is as messy as it has been, and I'll probably regret that for this lesson. But I just left it the way it was. We need to get ourselves underway here now in this lesson, and within the course of this lesson, try and finish up our appreciation for the fact that the book of the Psalms, broken down to its 5 sections, each section corresponds with one of the mandates, the 5 mandates of the Davidic covenant. We have seen already in the first book of the Psalms, Psalm 1 through 41, the fact that the Psalms there, especially the core Psalms, deal with the issue of the Redeemer and his redemption, the first mandate of the Davidic covenant, the first requirement that Adonai Jehovah, in fleshing himself in the line of the seed of David, needed to come and put God's Jehovahness into effect for Israel in order for them to be able to function in connection with the kingdom of heaven on this earth and fulfill the plan and purpose God has for his people, Israel, as specified in the Abrahamic covenant. The second necessary thing for the Messiah to do is to function as Israel's deliverer and to provide the deliverances that they need. And that is the subject matter of the second book of the Psalms, Psalms 42 through 72. The core Psalms there, particularly Psalm 50 through 60, in which the mechanics of the Lord functioning as the Redeemer and providing functioning as the deliverer and providing the deliverances that Israel needs, they're set forth in those Psalms. The core Psalm for the first book of the Psalms is the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th Psalm, particularly the 22nd Psalm itself, that sets forth the mechanics of the Lord functioning as the Redeemer and providing the redemption that Israel needs. The third book of the Psalms, Psalm 79 through Psalm 73, through Psalm 89. I'm getting my numbers mixed up here. The third book of the Psalms, Psalm 73 through 89, dealing with the avenger and his avengement. The particular core Psalms there are Psalm 79 through 83, particularly the 79th Psalm itself. That's the one we were able to look at in our last lesson. Once again, dealing with the mechanics of how the Lord will function as Israel's avenger and avenge his cause with Israel upon the Gentiles and especially upon Satan and his policy of evil against the plan and purpose of God with Israel on this earth. And we have the final 2 books of the Psalms to gain some appreciation for here in this lesson. I've had you turn to Psalm 90 through Psalm 106. That's the 4th book of the Psalms, dealing with the king and his kingdom. The 4th mandate of the Davidic covenant calls for Adonai Jehovah, having enfleshed himself in the line of the seed of David, to become Israel's king, function as their king, and give them the kingdom and all the ramifications and things that come out of that. And the 4th book of the Psalms, Psalm 90 through 106, is focusing upon that issue. And then we'll finish up in this lesson today with Psalm 107 through 150. That's the 5th book of the Psalms, dealing with the 5th mandate of the Davidic covenant, the blesser and his blessings. And as we'll see, the core Psalms there. And what I asked you to do at the end of our last lesson was to look at the core Psalms in these final 2 books of the Psalms. The core Psalms for the 4th book of the Psalms that we'll be looking at in just a moment, Psalm 96 especially through Psalm 100. And then the core Psalms for the 5th book of the Psalms are those songs of degree that are identified there, 15 of them, Psalm 120 through Psalm 134. Okay, let's get ourselves underway here. You have your Bibles open to the 4th book of the Psalms. Let's get to those core Psalms. That's all the time we have in the Psalm primer is to briefly look at and consider the subject matter of the core Psalms, primarily because that's where the mechanics of the functioning of Christ as the either Redeemer, Deliverer, Avenger, King, or Blesser is described and dealt with. All the other Psalms that I showed you last time by that diagram I drew that kind of illustrates how things work, the preceding Psalms to the core Psalms kind of set the stage for the need for that mandate of the Davidic covenant, whichever one is being dealt with, and brings it up to the climax of that those core psalms, and then things kind of trail away with the remaining psalms, describing the experiences that the remnant will have as they benefit from those mandates of the Davidic covenant, and also setting the stage for going on into the next mandate. Well, the fourth book of the Psalms, once again, Psalm 96 through Psalm 100, particularly focuses upon the mechanics of the Lord functioning as the king, and the issues of the kingdom that come about from that, and the function of that once again upon this earth, and the provision that is there for Israel to fulfill the plan and purpose God has for them as set forth in the Abrahamic covenant, with them functioning as the great nation through whom the rest of the world is blessed. This is probably the book of the Psalms and the mandate of the Davidic covenant that is probably the easiest to appreciate. And it's not that the others are difficult to appreciate, I don't mean that. But when you understand, of course, the plan and purpose of God with Israel, of course, is to establish His kingdom on this earth. Just that fundamental understanding allows you to really have a good appreciation for the things you read about in this fourth book of the Psalms, focusing upon the King and His kingdom, and especially these core Psalms that we're going to go through here. If you had the opportunity to look at Psalm 96 through Psalm 100, you not only had an appreciation for the fact that the king and his kingdom is the focal point in these psalms, but you also probably noticed that they were called new songs. That term, new song, was consistently used throughout the psalms. They're oftentimes referred to as the new song psalms. And that's significant, and it's significant to just note that and dock it in the back of your mind for future studies, especially when you're dealing with the book of the Revelation. When you're dealing with the book of the Revelation, of course, you're dealing with the book in which God sets forth the details of what's going to be going on in that fifth and final installment in the fifth course of punishment in the day of the Lord, and the coming of the Lord Jesus Christ at the end of that time, the great and terrible day of the Lord, and the establishment of the kingdom, and so forth there. He describes the things that will be going on when He resumes and fulfills His plan and purpose with the nation Israel. And when you're over there in the book of the Revelation, you come across the issue of a new song being sung, and a new song being taught to the believing remnant and so forth there. And the issue of the new song psalms and that issue of the new song spoken about over there, there's a correlation between the two there. And if you understand and appreciate that, and of course understand and appreciate the fourth book of the Psalms and the issue of the king and his kingdom, you can see the naturalness of that. And you can see that those members of the remnant who come out of the great tribulation there, and so you can see that with them being taught the issue of the new song psalms and so forth, and being taught to sing that that's what they're going to be doing in the kingdom. And when they're utilized in the kingdom as rulers and reigners over Gentile nations, and as ambassadors out to the Gentile nations, and as the Lord's emissaries and so forth to the Gentile, you can see the naturalness of them being taught those new song psalms, because here in the new song psalms is the issue not only of the kingdom being established, but Israel fulfilling the role once again God has for them in establishing His kingdom on this earth through them, and them taking out that message and that song and that good news of the kingdom and everything, and offering it to the nations, and administering it amongst them and so forth. And hopefully those kind of things began to click in your mind as you began to go through this and appreciate the issue in these core psalms for the fourth book of the Psalms, focused upon the mechanics of the function of the king and his kingdom. Well, let's take a quick look at them ourselves here. And that's about all we'll be able to do, as has been the case throughout this study so far. It's just a primer once again on the structure and doctrinal content and flow and design and purpose of the book of Psalms and God's plan and purpose and program with the nation Israel. All right, the core Psalms once again are Psalm 96 through Psalm 100 in particular there. I'd like to have us quickly go through each one of those Psalms and just get an appreciation for the king and his kingdom here. Look at the first verses here of Psalm 96. Oh, sing unto the Lord a new song. Sing unto the Lord all the earth. Sing unto the Lord, bless His name. His name once again is capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D there, Jehovah. And the issue is an appreciation for His Jehovah-ness. Israel has that appreciation first, and then the Gentiles. Once the kingdom is established and the message goes out, as in passages like Isaiah chapter 2 and so forth there, Micah chapter 4 and 5, they'll have an appreciation, be taught the issue of God's Jehovah-ness also, and they'll have an appreciation for that. One of the purposes of the temple in the millennium, and what's described over there in Ezekiel 40 through 48, is the issue of the education of the nations. So often people get confused with what's going on over there. That they recognize that there are still sacrifices and things like that spoken about over there, and there's a puzzlement as to why that would be the case. But you got to remember that once the kingdom is established, Israel's functioning as the fully educated sons. The Gentiles are going to be dealt with as the children, and the education and everything is for them. And there's a great issue for them to be educated in connection with God's Jehovah-ness and all that He has provided, and the same type rudiments of the world will be utilized in connection with that. I decided to throw that in connection with this, because the appeal here is to all the earth and everything, and once the kingdom is established, that's what the appeal is going to be. Redeemed Israel is going to go out, and they're going to function in connection with the plan and purpose God has for them. The kingdom, once again, is vested in them. It's for the world, but it's vested in them, and the responsibility of the administration of it and the extension of it and so forth is given to Israel. In fact, that's cited as one of the particular blessings that they possess in the 5th book of the Psalms, as it deals with the blesser and his blessings. The honor of taking the glory of the kingdom out to the nations is described as a blessing that they are possessors of, especially in those last 3 Psalms in that 5th book of the Psalm. Psalm 148, 149, and Psalm 150 there. Anyway, verse 2, sing unto the Lord, bless His name, show forth His salvation from day to day. Declare His glory among the heathen, His wonders among all people. So that's this is a psalm, once again, describing the kingdom's establishment. We'll see that very clearly in the next few verses here, along with the remaining of these core psalms here. It's looking at the establishment of the kingdom. The Lord He's functioned as the Redeemer already. He's functioned as the Deliverer. He's functioned as the Avenger. He's come back once again and completely provided all the deliverance and the avengement. And now He's established the kingdom. He's functioning now as the King there. The kingdom is given to Israel, and now they're being talked about here, and a song is being sung once again in connection with their role as they are His royal family, so to speak, in His kingdom, and they function in that kingdom in accordance with His design and purpose. And verse 3 says, declare His glory among the heathen. It's not a psalm, once again, for the heathen, it's a psalm, once again, for the believing remnant, with the kingdom established and everything, and then functioning in that kingdom. And the issue that they're going to be doing is declaring His glory, and it's the glory of His kingdom and His reign and everything. And all that's wrapped up in His Jehovah's name. And declare that among the heathen, His wonders among all people. And there's wonders, once again, that He has shown in that 5th and final installment in the 5th course of punishment in the day of the Lord there. In fact, hold your place there in Psalm 96. Come back, if you would, to Psalm 66 and 67 here. And in the 2nd book of the Psalms here, in connection with describing the deliverance, there was the issue of having described the mechanical means by which the deliverance and deliverances come with God's judgments and everything. That there are citations in the latter Psalms here, in the 2nd book of the Psalms, in which those very things are going to be used once the kingdom is established to impact the heathen. And that's what's being cited there now in Psalm 96. Show His wonders among all people. Look back here, like I said, to Psalm 66. Make a joyful noise unto God, all ye lands. Sing forth the honor of His name. Make His praise glorious. Say unto God, what? How terrible art thou in thy works. Through the greatness of thy power shall thine enemies submit themselves unto thee. All the earth shall worship thee, and shall sing unto thee. They shall sing to thy name. Selah. come and see the works of God. He is terrible in his doing toward the children of men. He turned the sea into dry land. He went through the flood on foot. There did we rejoice in him. By the way, that's what takes place in the day of the Lord there. There's a repetition of what took place back when he brought them out of the land of Egypt there. But even more so, he ruleth by his power. Verse 7 says, forever. His eyes behold the nations. Let not the rebellious exalt themselves. Selah. We don't have time to go down to the whole, but yes, you get the issue there. The nations are exhorted to sing forth the honor of his name, make his praise glorious. Say unto, this is what they're going to be saying unto God, how terrible art thou in thy works. Through the greatness of thy power shall thine enemies submit themselves. The way in which the Gentiles are going to, they're going to be shown his terrible works, his amazing wonders that he execute in the day of the Lord there. Well, that's the issue now. It's being cited there in the Psalms dealing with the deliverer, that those deliverances and everything are going to have an impact out there when the kingdom gets self-established. And even though Israel, especially the remnant, have been the recipients of those deliverances during the day of the Lord, they're now going to take the knowledge of those deliverances and they're going to show them unto the Gentiles, the heathen, once the kingdom is established. And the heathen are going to have, that's going to make an impact upon them also. And by the demonstration of the greatness of his power, they're going to submit. Well, that's what this 96th Psalm. Now the focus of the 96th Psalm is he's functioning as the king, and the kingdom's been established. And we redeemed Israelites are going out with the message. We're saying to the nations, we're declaring his glory among the heathen, and his wonders amongst the people. And what we're declaring is what he's done there, and we're showing them that was our God who did that. And as verse 4 says, for the Lord is great and greatly to be praised. He is to be feared above all gods. And the nations are going to see the reality of that. And they better fear him and submit. Verse 5, for all the gods of the nations are idols, but the Lord made the heavens. Honor and majesty are before him. Strength and beauty are in his sanctuary. So he's got the king's established. He's there in his sanctuary. That millennial temple is there. Give unto the Lord, O ye kindreds of the people. Give unto the Lord glory and strength. Give unto the Lord the glory due unto his name. The issue once again is an acknowledgement of his Jehovahness and everything. Bring an offering and come into his courts. Oh, worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. Fear before him all the earth. See, the basic provision is there for the Gentiles to come in and get an education and to render their worship and everything, and the demonstration of their submission. And they're going to have an appreciation for the glory and honor of his name. They're going to be educated in the issue of his Jehovahness also. Verse 10, say among the heathen that the Lord reigneth. The world also shall be established, that it shall not be moved. He shall judge the people righteously. Now you're going to tell the nations the Lord reigns. He's there in Israel, and he's reigning on this earth that he created and everything, and designed and purposed to be his place of residence with his kingdom for the administration of his rulership in creation. He designed for it to be from that place. And now the issue is the king's established. Go out Israel and tell the heathen that he does reign. The word also says, shall be established, that it shall not be moved. He shall judge the people righteously through the administration of his rule throughout that of his kingdom. The world gets itself established in his kingdom. Not just Israel, but the world gets itself established. And that goes on over the period of time of the 1,000 years I described. There's a time schedule given for that later on in the book of the Revelation. It's not that the Lord just reigns for 1,000 years, doesn't reign anymore, but to fulfill the complete mandates of the Davidic covenant. It takes 1,000 years for him to put all rule and all power and all authority under his feet. And those are the dictates of the mandates of the mandate of him functioning as the king and as the blesser there. This first of the core Psalms, not the first of the Psalms in the fourth book of the Psalms dealing with the king and his kingdom. It begins back there in Psalm 90. But when you come to Psalm 96 here, the Psalm 90 through 95 has built up to the issue of the kingdom and the Lord coming as the king, and the need for that and the longing for that and everything in Israel. And then now the 96th Psalm takes it as a stated a fact that he's come, he's functioning as the king, he's reigning, and now the glory and honor and everything that belongs to redeemed Israel to function in connection with that is extolled, and they're going to be singing about that. And the members of the remnant will be learning this new song, psalm, and everything in preparation for that time as they are going through the latter part, especially the day of the Lord. And then when it comes, they're fully educated in what their role will be and the glory and honor and majesty and privilege and everything associated with that. Verse 11, let the heavens rejoice and let the earth be glad. Let the sea roar and the fullness thereof. Let the field be joyful and all that is therein. Then shall all the trees of the wood rejoice. All the creation as a whole, especially the earth as a whole, begins to respond to the glory of the kingdom. Before the Lord, pardon me, I cut off the thought there at the end of verse 12. It says, let the field be joyful, and all that is therein. Then shall all the trees of the wood rejoice before the Lord. For he cometh to judge the earth. He shall judge the world with righteousness, and the people with his truth. Once again, this psalm is, by those last verses, you understand, this psalm is the first of the new song psalms that the remnants taught actually before the Lord comes back. They're taught the glory, once again, of what they're going to be doing when he comes back to function as the king and the blesser. And they're looking forward to that, and it's giving them great encouragement and great fortification and great capacity to endure, especially the horrendous things that will be going on in the latter part there leading up to the great and terrible day of the Lord. But once again, that's the first of the core psalms here for the fourth book of the Psalms, dealing with the king and his kingdom. The next one, Psalm 97, the Lord reigneth. Let the earth rejoice. Let the multitude of isles be glad thereof. Clouds and darkness around about him, righteousness and judgment of the habitation of his throne. A fire goes. That's describing once again the event that precedes him taking the throne, taking the power to reign, and actually reigning on this earth, which is the great and terrible day of the Lord. Psalm 96 ended with verse 13, with him coming. Psalm 97, it's a psalm about the king and his kingdom, and it deals with the very event of his coming to establish that kingdom. And you get on down, for example, to verse 8, says, Zion heard and was glad, and the daughters of Judah rejoiced because of thy judgments, O Lord. The judgments, once again, in the day of the Lord there. For thou, Lord, art high above all the earth. Thou art exalted far above all gods. Ye that love the Lord hate evil. He preserveth the souls of his saints. He delivereth them out of the hand of the wicked. Light is sown for the righteous, and gladness for the upright in heart. Rejoice in the Lord, ye righteous, and give thanks at the remembrance of his holiness. Once again, it's another one of the psalms that the remnant's going to be taught there, right in the latter part of the fifth installment there, the day of the Lord, in anticipation of him coming as the king. He comes once again to put his position of exaltation above all the gods in effect on this earth. And they're told there in verse 10 and 11 and 12, they're the ones that love the Lord. They're told to hate the evil, to recognize the preservation of their souls once again, and the issue of them going into that kingdom. And they're actually exhorted to conduct themselves before the king gets established in accordance with its establishment as far as righteousness is concerned. Psalm 98, O sing unto the Lord a new song, for he hath done marvelous things. His right hand and his holy arm hath gotten him the victory. Once again, it's looking at that event just preceding him coming to establish the kingdom, the great and terrible day of the Lord. It looks at the victory. It looks at the issue of the avengement there that vanquished all Israel's enemies and everything. His right hand, his holy arm, as it says there, hath gotten him the victory. The Lord hath made known his salvation. His righteousness hath he openly showed in the sight of the heathen. And once with the kingdom being established and reigning, redeemed Israel goes out once again and deals with that knowledge that's there. Verse 4 therefore says, make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all the earth. Make a loud noise and rejoice and sing praise. Sing unto the Lord with the harp, with the harp and with the voice of a psalm, with the trumpets and sound of cornets. Make a joyful noise before the Lord, the King. Let the sea roar in the fullness thereof, the world and all that dwell therein. Let the floods clap their hands, let the hills be joyful together before the Lord. For he cometh to judge the earth. With righteousness shall he judge the world, and the people with equity. He's going to function as that king once again, and bring the honor, the glory, and the administration, the righteous rule of his kingdom to this earth, and put it into effect on this earth. And these opening psalms now, of the core psalms in this fourth book of the Psalms, are the new song psalms the remnant's going to be singing in anticipation of that as they go through the latter part there of the day of the Lord, and looking forward to the glory of participating with the Lord in all that. Psalm 99, the Lord reigneth, let the people tremble. He sitteth between the cherubims, let the earth be moved. The Lord is great in Zion, he is high above all the people. Let them praise thy great and terrible name, for it is holy. The king's strength also loveth judgment. Thou dost establish equity. Thou executest judgment and righteousness in Jacob. Exalt the Lord our God, and worship at his footstool, for he is holy. Moses and Aaron among... Now you get the issue once again of the resurrection of the righteous Old Testament saints once again, like Moses and Aaron. They're going to be there in participation in the kingdom there. Moses and Aaron among his priests, and Samuel among them that call upon his name. They called upon the Lord, he answered them. And this is an exhortation once again to the remnant living right at that period of time there before the Lord comes to establish that kingdom, to glory and revel in the wonder and the magnificence of that kingdom and everything, and to be buoyed up, so to speak, by their participation with Moses and Aaron and Samuel and so forth there. Verse 9, exalt the Lord our God and worship at his holy hill, for the Lord our God is holy. And that's the appeal will first be to Israel once again, and to appreciate that, and to honor and glorify the Lord, and praise his holy name, and worship at his holy hill there. But that offer extends also to the nations out there, and that's where the 100th Psalm comes in. Make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all ye lands. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before his presence with singing. It's not just the issue now of praising him and worshiping before him and submitting themselves and everything. It's the issue also of serving him. And the submitting nations once again, once the kingdom is established, responding once again to what redeemed Israel shows them concerning his terrible and his wonderful works. And they submit by the knowledge of the glory of his power and everything. That works out to the opportunity for them to serve the Lord. And to be blessed by him. And that comes up later on when we deal with that final and fifth book of the Psalms there, the blesser and his blessings. And even the opportunity is there for the nations themselves to bless the Lord, not just redeemed Israel. Verse 3, know ye that the Lord, he is God. It is he that hath made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people, and the sheep of his pasture. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving, and into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him, and bless his name. For the Lord is good, his mercy is everlasting, and his truth endureth to all generations. Now, that's a quick look at the core Psalms to the fourth book of the Psalms, dealing with the king and his kingdom. And you can easily identify and recognize in those Psalms that that's the subject matter. The issue, once again, is especially for the remnant as they're going through the day of the Lord there and are experiencing the deliverance, the deliverer and his deliverance, the avenger and his avengement. As they're experiencing that, though, and getting down to the time when he's going to come and have his great and terrible day right at the end, the anticipation is for the kingdom to be established and for them, having been delivered and avenged, to go in there and function in that kingdom and to know doctrinally in advance the privilege, the honor, and their role in that kingdom. And these new song psalms are what they're going to be taught, especially out there in that day, just as is set forth in the book of the Revelation, dealing with them being taught the new song and new songs to be singing at that time. Well, the remaining Psalms here in this fourth book of the Psalms go on and talk about the usefulness of that doctrine once again in the hearts and minds and lives of the members of the remnant during that time there and everything, and looking forward to the experience of his coming and them reigning in that kingdom there. Well, let's come over though now to the fifth book of the Psalms, the fifth and final book of the Psalms, beginning in Psalm 107, going on to the end of the book of Psalms, 150th Psalm. The fifth and final book of the Psalms, once again, is dealing with the fifth and final mandate of the Davidic covenant. Letter B representing it there, the blesser and his blessings. 5 mandates: Redeemer, Deliverer, Avenger, King, and Blesser. And now, and historically, they come to pass once again, the Redeemer functioning in connection with at the cross there. And then when the program with Israel is resumed following this mystery dispensation of Gentile grace in which we live, he'll function in the fifth and final installment of the fifth course of punishment in the day of the Lord as the deliverer and as the avenger. When he comes back at the great and terrible day of the Lord at the end, then he begins to function as their king and as their blesser. And it's in the kingdom, in particular, where Israel experiences the blessings that God has for them, with them functioning as that great nation. As we begin to look at this, I think it's profitable for us to hold our place here in this fifth book of the Psalms. Come back to Genesis chapter 12 for a moment, if you would. Genesis chapter 12, and note something that is said in connection with the description of God's plan and purpose with Israel, as stated in the covenant God made with Abraham, what he declared to Abraham he was going to do with him and his seed. Genesis chapter 12, verse 1. Now the Lord had said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I'll bless them that bless thee, and I'll curse him that curseth thee, and in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. It's a real interesting thing here when you come to Genesis chapter 12. But the last time you came across the word blessing in the Bible from this point, from the beginning of the Bible up to this point, was in the first 2 chapters of Genesis. From the moment man sinned and became a sinner, and Satan took usurped possession of the world and became the prince of the world, the issue has been a curse from God. And the issue has not been the blessing of God. God set forth in Genesis chapter 3 there, when he first dealt with Adam, his wife, and Satan through the serpent there, that what Satan had done and what had taken place, he would deal with, and that his original plan and purpose for the earth remained, and his original plan and purpose for man on the earth remained. But the blessing was going to be put in abeyance until God dealt with what had taken place, until that seed of the woman dealt with everything necessary to be dealt with to crush the serpent's head there and provide for the deliverance of the earth back into God's rightful possession and the ability to continue on with what the plan and purpose for the earth is all about. So you don't hear the word blessing after Genesis chapter 3 until you really come here to Genesis chapter 12. And when God sets forth to Abram what his plan and purpose is for him, now the issue is that through what God's going to do with Abram and his seed, making of him and his seed a great nation, is going to provide the means for the blessing principle that was spelled out in those first 2 chapters of Genesis and the design and purpose of the earth to be fulfilled, come to pass and to be fulfilled. And the issue here is it's a twofold blessing. Not only does Abram and his seed get blessed by God, but through them the world gets blessed. Notice that once again there. Verse 2, and I'll make of thee a great nation. By the way, before we get on there, I'll make of thee a great nation. From our previous studies in connection with the plan and purpose of God with Israel, you ought to understand that, but you need to be reminded of it right now. When God says, I'll make of thee a great nation, the issue is not simply greatness as far as size is concerned, land, territory, and things like that. As far as size is concerned and territory possessed and everything, Israel, even when God fulfills his program and purpose with them, is not necessarily going to be great like that. But the greatness concept is the issue of God dwelling within them and fulfilling his plan and purpose through them for the establishment of his kingdom on this earth. That's the great concept. Moses clarifies that over in Deuteronomy chapter 4, and it's spelled out at other times, and again in particular to Daniel, in Daniel chapter 7, when the kingdom is described, and the issue of the foretold greatness of the Abrahamic covenant is described for what it is. And it's the issue of God ruling and reigning in them, and having and establishing his dominion on this earth through Abraham and his seed, and administering it through them. Well, that's important to understand and keep that in mind. But my main point of coming back here once again is the fact that he goes on and says, "And I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing." All right? Abraham and his seed, a connection with that great name, that they're going to be blessed by God, and then he's going to make them a blessing. So you already know in advance, once again, that the plan and purpose of God calls for them to be blessed and to be a blessing. And that sets the stage when Israel's under that first course of punishment and they're getting the curses rather than the blessings from God. That sets the stage once again for their need for a blesser and his blessings. And they can't merit they can't become a blesser on their own, and they can't merit blessings from God on their own. And therefore they need God's Jehovahness to be put into effect for them, and for him to become their blesser, so that he can fulfill what the Abrahamic covenant calls for and bless them. And through them being blessed, they can be a blessing to the world. And that's what the 5th book of the Psalms now is dealing with. And as you go through the 5th book of the Psalms, when you get especially to the core Psalms, you're dealing with the issue of Israel getting blessed, the blesser blessing Israel, and then the blessing going out from Israel to the nations, and them being a blessing, and all the families of the earth being blessed through them. Well, let's begin to take a quick look at the core Psalms here, to the 5th book of the Psalms. The 5th book of the Psalms, once again, is Psalm 107 through 150. The core Psalms, though, they're easily identified because they have a superscription that singles them out in a very particular way. And we just don't have time to go over all that's involved in the title, A Song of Degrees, although at least you can understand what's involved. A degree, once again, is an increment in something, and an increment in the calculation of something, like the degrees in the arc of a circle, for example, there. And you get increments once again in which you are able to measure the span and the scope of something there. And also a degree is a stage of exaltation beyond the previous stage. Like if you get a degree from a university or college, for example, there, it's an acknowledgement of proficiency in advancement beyond previous acknowledgments, like a master's degree above a bachelor's degree, and so forth. Those concepts are involved in the expression, a song of degrees. There's an advancement of increments of blessings that accrue to Israel, and that through them accrue to the world, as the blesser and his blessings are come upon Israel with the kingdom established. And in these songs of degrees, the 15 of them that are here, Psalm 120 through Psalm 134, you've got songs, once again, and psalms that the remnant will have in their mind, will be singing once again, and will be occupied with, and will be comforted by, and fortified, and consoled by during that final part in the 5th and final installment there, the 5th course of punishment, as they look forward once again to the issues of them being blessed, and blessing being upon blessing, and incremental advancement in blessings for them, and that issue going out to the world as once the kingdom is established and they function in it. You know, there's a concept in connection with the kingdom that a lot of folks don't don't see, and primarily because they don't really have much doctrinal frame of reference for the kingdom, having studied out things about it and everything, to really have much of an appreciation for it. But the kingdom is a growing, advancing concept throughout the time schedule that is given for the fulfillment of those final two mandates of the Davidic covenant, the 1,000 years that is outlined there and set forth in the book of the Revelation. There's a growth and an advancement to the kingdom. In fact, you see the principle of that in Isaiah chapter 9. And it talks about in connection with the child being born, the son being given, the Messiah once again, that the government shall be upon his shoulder, and the increase of his kingdom, there shall be no end. There's an increase of his kingdom. And there should be no end to it. It's not going to be thwarted. It's not going to be stopped. The reasons why are explained later on, once again, in connection with the vanquishing of Israel's enemies, the binding of the strong man once again, and then taking the strong man, the adversary, and putting him in the sides of the pit there, as Isaiah 14 describes and so forth. There's no successful opposition. There's no policy of evil once again hindering God's plan and purpose of the increase of his kingdom. There shall be no end. But the principle I'm after right now is that there's an increase concept there. There's a growth concept, and you see it in other passages as the kingdom is described. It's kind of like it's established there in Israel, and then it spreads out over the world. And by the time the 1,000 years are over, it's not only spread around the world, and the earth is full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the seas, as Isaiah 11 talks about there. But the blessings are there also, and they've been going out, and the nations have been experientially appreciating on an advancing basis the increments of blessing upon blessing upon blessing and everything. Well, the more you understand and appreciate that, the more you understand these core Psalms to the 5th book of the Psalms, dealing with the blesser and his blessings, but the more you also understand why they're called songs of degrees, and an appreciation for that issue. And also you have an appreciation for why some of these songs of degrees are songs of degrees, for one of them in particular, the middle one, for Solomon. When you understand once again the type that Solomon was between that first and that second course of punishment there, of Leviticus 26, when God gave Israel the interlude of glorious blessing and prosperity and everything, which were foretastes of that kingdom, and did so once again in connection with the central matter he was accomplishing and setting forth at that time, the Davidic covenant itself. Solomon, David's son there, was set forth as a type once again of the glory of the Messiah's reign out there as the man of peace, as the Prince of Peace out there in that kingdom. And you saw through Solomon there and his reign that increase concept. There was a spread of Israel's influence, and you had influence to the glory of God amongst the nations that just kept on going out and going out. And when the Queen of Sheba comes in and so forth there, she talks about what she has heard about the glory of Solomon and the wisdom and the judgments that come forth from him and all that. And that's just a mini picture of the type once again of the Lord's glory and reign out there. But there's a blessing concept in that. There's that issue of Israel being blessed with the glory and honor of the nations coming upon them, and then those nations being blessed through their submission, and that's why you got a psalm like that and so forth, and you got the individual Israelite with his children and so forth spoken about in that psalm, happy and glorified and all this business. Well, the more you understand the outworking of God's plan and purpose with Israel, the more you understand the 5 courses, the mandates of the Davidic covenant, the more you understand how God set forth many pictures of it all, the types of it all back there, and the more you understand all that business, the more you understand these type matters. And I don't expect those things, everything to click in your mind, you come along and say, yeah, I see that and all that right now. But I'm setting before you the fundamentals by which you can study these things out further and grow in your appreciation for these matters in connection with God's program with Israel. And that's once again what the Psalms primer is all about. But anyway, we've only got a few minutes left here after having said all that to quickly go over, or at least take a brief look at these core psalms here to the fifth book of the Psalms. It starts once again with Psalm 120, and there's 15 of them running forth through the 134th Psalm. I think the best thing for us to do here is to focus upon kind of like the primary blessing, especially the primary blessing that would be in the minds of the members of the remnant who are going to be dealing with these psalms just before the king gets stuff established and everything, and are looking forward to the blessings. One of the primary blessings that they're going to be looking forward to is the issue of peace. Peace once again in their land, in their capital city, Jerusalem, not having the Gentiles once again through the policy of evil of Satan, the adversary, persecuting them and troubling them, and all this business, which is what they're experiencing to the hilt once again during that final time there, the great tribulation of the day of the Lord. So one of the primary blessings they're looking for is peace and all the ramifications, the glorious ramifications that come from that. And as you go through these core psalms here, these songs of degrees, that's an overriding theme. Let's take a quick look at that, and then we'll look at especially the last two of these core psalms, last two songs of degrees, because once the issue of Israel's blessing, as God blesses them, is extolled and looked forward to and talked about, and what it all means and everything, and the experience and joy that's going to be for Israel in that kingdom, then those final two songs of degrees, Psalm 133 and Psalm 134, come along and talk about that with Israel established in peace. Then the provision God has stated in the past for the blessing to proceed out of Zion can go forth. And the final words are going to be, the Lord bless thee out of Zion. And that blessing, once again, he as the blesser is sitting there in Zion, and the blessing will be able to go out. Well, let's look at that. Look at the 120th Psalm here first. Look at the last two verses. It starts out with distress and everything, and the last two verses says, my soul hath long dwelt, verse 6, my soul hath long dwelt with him that hateth peace. I am for peace, but when I speak, they are for war. The remnant's going to be looking once again for the peace. Once again, as the king, he's also called the Prince of Peace. And that's the primary blessing he'll be giving as the blesser. And Israel, once again, is looking forward to that. And the psalmist here is talking about living at this time here. He's for peace, they're for war, and he's going to be looking for that blessing of peace once that kingdom is established there. That's how these core psalms in the fifth book of the Psalms, dealing with the blessing, that's how it starts out. And that's the primary blessing in their mind. Psalm 121, the last verse. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth, and even forevermore. There's anxiety and suffering once again spoken about there, but then there's the issue of the preservation of the soul. They'll make it through that time, and then they're going to be into a period in which preservation and the Lord keeping them and them not being smitten at all anymore, not even by the sun and by the moon, as it says there in verse 6, is going to be their everlasting state. That's one of the tangible, palpable, culpable aspects of the peace that they're looking for. Psalm 122, pick up verse 6. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. They shall prosper that love thee. Peace be within thy walls, and prosperity within thy palaces. For my brethren and companions' sake, I will now say, peace be within thee. Because of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek thy good. That's not an exhortation to you and I today to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. That Jerusalem's not going to have any peace once again until the Prince of Peace is on the doorstep of coming through the door down to have the great and terrible day of the Lord and go in and establish it. And that's the backdrop to that psalm there. And the members of the remnant here and everything are going to be talking about the issue of the thrones being set up for judgment, the Davidic throne once again all set to go, and they're going to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. That's the primary blessing once again that they're going to get. Psalm 120, well, I'll skip on down to Psalm 125 here for time's sake. Psalm 125, And verse 5, as for such, the last verse, as for such as turn aside unto their crooked ways, the Lord shall lead them forth with the workers of iniquity, but peace shall be upon Israel. They're experiencing the issues there once again as God provides a deliverance, the disassociation between the workers of iniquity and the remnant there and everything. And they're going to see once again, as it says there, the Lord leading them forth with the workers of iniquity for the judgment. And for the rod, once again spoken about in the previous verses there, but peace shall be upon Israel. And that's what they're going to have out there, and that's what they're looking for as the blessings come upon them. With the Redeemer having redeemed, delivered, avenging, and when he functions as the king, they're looking for the blessings that come out of that. Psalm 126. Verse 4, turn again our captivity, O Lord, as the streams in the south. They that sow in tears shall reap in joy. He that goeth forth and weepeth, bearing precious seed, shall doubtless come again with rejoicing, bringing his sheaves with him. And that's all for the blessing out there and the joy once again that'll be there when the captivity is turned. When the captivity is turned once again, instead of the curses coming upon them, one of the curses being the issue of going into captivity, they'll be in the position for the blessings to come upon them. And by the way, that song, he shall come rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves, all about the remnant in the kingdom there, not about you and I in this dispensation of grace. Well, come on down to the 128th Psalm here. That's all 6 verses. Blessed is everyone that feareth the Lord. That's the issue. Now you don't only have the primary blessing of peace being dealt with now, but the basic principle of being blessed and all the other ramifications in connection with that. Blessed is everyone that feareth the Lord, that walketh in his ways, and that's what the remnant once again is going to be doing during that time there. That's what they're going to look forward to. That's what they're going to get in connection with it. For thou shalt eat the labor of thine hands. Happy shalt thou be, and it shall be well with thee. Thy wife shall be as a fruitful vine by the sides of thine house. Thy children like olive plants round about thy table. The very blessings, once again, that were set before them back at that law contract that were based upon their performance, that they could never get by their performance, and all they got were the curses. Now those blessings once again will be there, graciously given unto them because of their participation in the application of the redemption to them, and they'll have been delivered, avenged, and are reigning in the kingdom, and they'll get those blessings graciously given to them. And this is more than just the peace now, and this is the prosperity. Behold, thus shall the man be blessed that feareth the Lord. The Lord shall bless thee out of Zion, and thou shalt see the good of Jerusalem all the days of thy life. The good, once again, that he brings to his city. Yea, thou shalt see thy children's children, and peace upon Israel. Man, those are the blessings that they're looking for. Those are Israel's blessings in that kingdom. Well, come over to the 132nd Psalm for a moment here. Notice that the issues of this joy and this blessedness and this prosperity and all this business are because of the rest or the Sabbath of the Lord that they're enjoying, which is what the Sabbath once again is on Israel's calendar, weekly calendar and annual calendar. The Sabbath once again is the issue, the constant reminder of the plan and purpose of God with Israel for them to enjoy the rest of the Lord and for him to be able to function in fulfillment of what was originally stated back in Genesis chapter 2 there, where on the seventh day he rested. And the activity of him from that point on was the issue of the administration of his kingdom on this earth. But that never came to pass yet because of Adam's sin. Look at it here, though. Psalm 132, pick it up in verse 8. Arise, O Lord, enter into thy rest, thou in the ark of thy strength. Let thy priests be clothed with righteousness, and let thy saints shout for joy. For thy servant David's sake, turn not away the face of thine anointed. The Lord hath sworn in truth unto David, he will not turn. Of the fruit of thy body will I set upon thy throne. That's the issue. Of the fruit of thy body, I'm going to come and put my Jehovah into effect, and I'll be a redeemer, deliverer, avenger, but I'll be your king. I'll sit upon your throne, and I'll have my rest, and I'll bless you in connection with it. Verse 13, for the Lord hath chosen Zion, he hath desired it for his habitation. This is my rest forever. Here will I dwell, for I have desired it. I will abundantly bless her provision. I will satisfy her poor with bread, and so forth there. This is my rest. I'm going to bless in connection with it. And all the issues and all the blessing and prosperity and everything spoken about in these songs of degrees dealing with the blessed and his blessings are in conjunction once again with the fulfillment of that final mandate of the Davidic covenant. He said, of the fruit of thy loins I'll sit upon thy throne. And that's what he said to David. And that focusing on the kingdom issue there. But he's going to be the Redeemer, the Deliverer, the Avenger, then that King, and then that blessing. Blesser. And as he says, this is the rest, this is my rest forever. Here will I dwell, for I desired it, and I will abundantly bless. Once he rests, he can bless. The issue isn't once he rests, he can just sit down and do nothing. That's not what he intended. He intends upon, after following resting, to bless. Anyway. Last two Psalms in the core Psalms here to the fifth and final book of the Psalms dealing with the blesser and his blessings. Look at Psalm 133. Well, let's just read the two. There's only 3 verses to each one. Behold, Psalm 133, behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. And that's not talking about no denominational differences in dispensation of grace. Although denominational differences are a bunch of baloney also, but 1 Corinthians chapter 1 and 2 handles that. This is the brethren of Israel once again. No more northern kingdom, southern kingdom. No more Ephraim against Judah and so forth. That's them dwelling together in unity. It is like the precious ointment upon the head that ran down upon the beard, even Aaron's beard, that went down to the skirts of his garments. And in so doing that, the precious ointment once again went down and covered all the stones that represent the 12 tribes upon his breastplate and everything like that. And united them. And the precious ointment, once again, the symbol of them being blessed together. As the dew of Hermon and as the dew that descendeth upon the mountains of Zion. Why? For there, in the mountains of Zion, the Lord commanded the blessing, even life, forevermore. That's just sitting in the Davidic covenant once again. It's there when he made the Davidic covenant. When they made the law contract, once again, they contracted to be blessed on the basis of their performance, and they couldn't do it, and they got the curse instead of the blessing. God comes along once again after showing them all that they need, and their impossibility of them getting the blessings on the basis of their performance there, before the second course of punishment comes, brings the interlude of glorious blessing and privilege to them on the basis of the Davidic covenant there. And in connection with that, he commands the blessing will go forth once he is reigning there on the throne. Once he's functioned as the Redeemer, the Deliverer, the Avenger, and is functioning as the King, reigning upon that throne, sitting upon that throne, fulfilling the Davidic covenant in connection with the throne, there's where he commanded the blessing to go out. And that's when it goes out. The mountains of Zion, once again, for there the Lord commanded the blessing, even life forevermore. Psalm 134. Behold, bless ye the Lord, all ye servants of the Lord, which by night stand in the house of the Lord. Lift up your hands in the sanctuary and bless the Lord that made the heaven and earth. Bless thee out of Zion. And that's the final psalm in the core core psalms in the fifth and final book of the Psalms, dealing with the blesser and his blessings, brings up the issue of the Lord that made heaven and earth, functioning as Elyon on the earth, blessing thee out of Zion. There he is in Zion, and now the issue is the blessing can go out of it. And as the final Psalms in the fifth book of the Psalms deal with, not only are the ramifications of all that blessing spoken about, so the joy, praise, honor, and glory is rightfully given to the Lord, not only by Israel, but by creation as a whole on the earth in particular. But the honor is cited there of Israel taking that to the nations and bringing and allowing the blessing to go out from Zion to them also. That's why you got a passage, for example, like over in Ezekiel chapter 36 and chapter 37 there, when Israel's prescription for cleansing is described, and the application of that prescription for cleansing, once again, is described as being brought upon the nation so they can function out there in that kingdom, be a clean, holy nation to function out there in the kingdom. And then in chapter 37, when they're out there functioning and so forth, it describes the issue of their changed heart, and how that they look upon the nations out there, and they're going to come along and say to the Lord, Bless them as you've blessed us. That's my paraphrase of the concept there, but that's the doctrinal issue over there. The Lord recognizes I'll be yet asked by them to be blessed, to bless the nations as you've blessed us. So that's the issue of the blessing going out of Zion. And the reason why, Abrahamic covenant. I'll bless thee, and thou shalt be a blessing. And these shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Well, our time is up for this lesson. That's our quick survey of the 5 books of the Psalms, each one of those books respectively dealing with the 5 mans of the Davidic covenant in order: Redeemer, Deliverer, Avenger, King, and Blesser. Now we're going to end up our study, the Psalms primer, with one more lesson, lesson 6, in which, as I said, we're going to take a few representative Psalms and look at them in connection with the plan and purpose God has for them doctrinally for the remnant of Israel, especially out there in the 5th and final installment, the Day of the Lord. Particularly, we're going to look at some Psalms like the 23rd Psalm that's just so often misunderstood. Until next time.